He had already hit the ground twice. Twice he had let go of the hand of a clock tower 60 feet in the air. Twice he had dropped through the thin fabric awnings that were supposed to slow him down. And twice his body had come down wrong, once flipping him head over heels and crunching him onto the back of his neck like a rag doll thrown off a roof. Any doctor watching would have told him to stop. Any sane man would have stopped. Instead, Jackie Chan wiped himself off, looked up at that clock tower again, and started climbing back up to do it a third time. There was no wire. There was no CGI. There was no digital net that would be erased in post-production, because in 1983, none of that existed. There was a man, a clock hand 3 stories up, 2 flimsy cloth canopies, and the hard ground below. And there was one camera rolling, waiting to catch the entire fall in a single unbroken take. This is the story of one of the most insane stunts ever committed to film. A fall that should have broken Jackie Chan's neck, that he chose to perform not once but 3 times. And that tells you everything about why this man became a legend and very nearly a corpse. To understand why he was up on that tower at all, you have to understand where Jackie Chan was in his career in 1983. He was not yet a god. He was a rising star with a problem. His previous period film, Dragon Lord, had underperformed. Audiences had found it light on action, and in Hong Kong cinema, light on action meant light on ticket sales. Jackie knew he had to answer with something enormous, something no one had seen. So he wrote and directed a film called Project A, set in the pirate-era Hong Kong of around 1911. And he decided it would be built around stunts so ambitious they would put his name in a category of its own. This was also the film where he pulled together the people who would define the rest of his life. His stunt team, the legendary Jackie Chan stunt team, took real shape here. And alongside him were the 2 men he'd grown up with, his brothers from that brutal Peking opera school of their childhood, Sammo Hung and Yuan Biao. 3 boys who had been beaten into acrobats before dawn, now 3 of the most gifted action performers on the planet, working together. Project A was going to be their statement, and the exclamation point on that statement was the clock tower. The scene itself has become one of the most famous images in action cinema. Jackie's character, cornered high up inside a clock tower, ends up scrambling out onto the exterior face of the giant clock and hanging from one of its hands, dangling in open air with nothing beneath him. Anyone who has seen it immediately thinks of the silent film icon Harold Lloyd, who famously hung from a clock high above a street in his 1923 film. For decades, people have called Jackie's version an homage. But here's the honest truth Jackie himself has told. At the time he made Project A, he hadn't even seen the old silent comedies of Harold Lloyd or Buster Keaton. Those films simply weren't available to watch in Hong Kong yet. Western critics drew the comparison later, and only then did Jackie go back, watch Keaton, and realize with a shock how alike they were. He had reinvented the wheel by pure instinct. But Lloyd, back in 1923, had used camera tricks and clever angles and platforms to make his clock hanging look far more dangerous than it was. That was smart filmmaking. That was the safe way. Jackie Chan did not do it the safe way. Jackie decided that when his character lost his grip, he would actually fall, all the way down, for real, on camera. And this is where the fear set in, because Jackie Chan, the fearless one, was afraid. He has admitted it openly. In rehearsals, it took him an entire week just to build up the courage to let go from that height. A week of standing up there, looking down at the ground 3 stories below, knowing that the only things between him and a broken spine were 2 pieces of cloth that might or might not tear the way they were supposed to. Even the man who did everything himself needed 7 days to convince his own body to make this jump. The plan relied on those 2 awnings. As he fell, he was supposed to crash through the first canopy, then the second, each one ripping and bleeding off a little of his speed before he reached the ground. In theory, the fabric would slow him just enough. In theory. But fabric is not a science. An awning can tear cleanly, or it can catch, or it can bounce you sideways, or it can flip you upside down. You cannot rehearse it safely. You have to actually fall to find out what it does, and what it does might be the thing that kills you. Then came the day. The cameras rolled, and Jackie let go. The first attempt went wrong almost immediately. The awning didn't break the way it was meant to. Instead of tearing through and slowing him, it resisted just enough to throw his body off its axis, sending him tumbling head over heels, and he came down in a sickening, twisting heap, landing hard on the back of his neck. This is the kind of impact that ends careers, that ends lives, that puts people in wheelchairs. Jackie got up, and he wasn't happy with the take. Not the pain, the take. In his mind, it hadn't looked right on camera. So he did the only thing that made sense to a man wired the way he was wired. He went back up and did it again. A second fall from 60 feet, through the same treacherous awnings, onto the same unforgiving ground. And again, it wasn't clean. Again, his body took the punishment. Again, it wasn't good enough for him. So he climbed the tower a third time. Think about what that actually means. He now knew from direct physical experience exactly how much this fall hurt. He had felt his neck compress under his own body weight twice. There was no more mystery, no more optimistic hope that it would go smoothly. He knew the danger with total clarity, and he chose it anyway, a third time, because the shot in his head wasn't on film yet. On the third fall, he came down landing more onto his torso and neck, and this time it did real damage. He injured his neck badly enough that, by his own account in his autobiography, it was one of the genuine injuries of his career, the kind that nearly broke it, that could easily have paralyzed him. He was, by every reasonable measure, a man who had just been in a serious accident. And here is the moment that defines Jackie Chan more than any punch or kick he ever threw. He did not stay down. He did not clutch his neck and wait for a medic. He stayed in character, pulled himself up, and finished the scene. Got to his feet in the world of the movie and delivered his line, as if a man falling 3 stories onto his skull and neck was simply a normal Tuesday. The camera caught all of it in one continuous take. The fall, the impact, the recovery. Real terror, real pain, real triumph. No edit, no cheat. That single uncut shot is why people still watch this scene 40 years later and gasp. Because on some level, the audience can feel that it's real. There's no trick their eye can catch, because there is no trick. A human being genuinely did that. Now here's the part that makes Jackie Chan not just brave but strangely, beautifully honest about the cost of what he does. He didn't hide the failed attempts. Starting around this era, Jackie had begun putting his bloopers and botched takes, the NGs, the no-good shots, over the closing credits of his films. And the disastrous, neck-crunching failed versions of the tower fall are right there in the outtakes for the whole world to see. He wanted you to know it went wrong. He wanted you to see the price. While every other action star in the world was working overtime to make the fake look effortless, Jackie Chan was showing you the broken, bleeding, failed attempts and saying, "This was real, and here's what it cost me." That instinct, to give the audience something genuine, to never fake the thing that matters, to pay the price with his own body, is the whole engine of his career. And it's the same engine that would, 3 years later, put him on a rock in Yugoslavia with a piece of his own skull driven into his brain on the set of Armor of God. The clock tower and the tree branch are the same story told twice. The same man, refusing to accept, good enough, willing to nearly die for one more take that was slightly better than the last. You can call it madness. A lot of people have. But there's another word for it, and it's the word that turned a beaten little opera school kid into one of the most beloved performers who ever lived: devotion. Total, reckless, breathtaking devotion to giving people something real. Jackie Chan hung from that clock, 60 feet in the air, knowing exactly what waited below. And he let go, not twice, but 3 times, until he had the shot. Most of us spend our whole lives never once committing to anything that completely. He did it before lunch with a broken neck, and then he got up and finished the scene.